How's it going, comic book fans? Welcome to another episode of in-depth and analytical comic book reviews on comic drops. On today's episode, we're taking a look at everyone's favorite ex-MI6 agent and international spy's new series, Ninjak vs. Roku, issue number 1. There's a lot riding on this comic, especially after the last two ridiculously bad outings the character has had. Does Ninjak make a return to form, or should this title stay buried under King Castle? Stay tuned to find out. First up, let's discuss the narrative of Ninjak vs. Roku, issue number 1. Alright, on writing duties for this series is AJ Ampadu, another relatively unknown variable in the road to resurgence. Before we take a look at the narrative, however, I want to get this point out of the way. The writing for this issue is good. I recently saw on Reddit that Ampadu did a retrospective on Valiant Comics and Ninjak, where he stated that he's been reading Valiant Comics since the 90s. And that he has been a fan ever since. And I think that shows with this book. We actually have another writer who understands the character he's writing for, and this is certainly a positive. This book opens with Ninjak making his way to Greece as he has been tasked with recovering a girl who has been implanted with a chip that allows her to essentially replicate Livewire's abilities, but only in limited fashion. Neville Alcott explains that she can stream any data she wants to into her mind from anywhere in the world. So essentially, this girl is the most important person on the planet right now. Upon arriving in Greece, Ninjak stumbles into Roku, who has obviously been attacked by someone else. Ninjak is there for the girl, Roku is there for the girl, and of course, a fight ensues over where this girl is and who gets to have her. Roku thinks Ninjak knows where she is, and Ninjak just wants to know what happened to Roku and get the girl too. And then we get a well-scripted fight that lasts several pages. I'm impressed with seeing a multi-page fight like this because you usually don't get this type of focus on fights in comics nowadays. Ninjak realizes that he's outmatched by Roku and has to resort to bringing out his ninja tech, which in this case is a cache of ninja stars that sends out shockwaves that could pulverize a brick wall or kill an elephant. Then he hits Roku with two of these, breaking both of her arms in the process, only for her to snap them back into place. And just in case, he throws one at her feet, which sends out a shockwave, breaking both of her legs as well. After snapping her legs back in place, of course some skills she learned from the undead monk, she finally calms down enough to talk to Ninjak about the target. And also, in a pretty awesome scene and display of her tolerance for pain, Ninjak approaches her and stabs her in the stomach in a very nonchalant way and continues his discussion. However, Roku has other plans, obviously, and starts to choke him out just as we get a few flashbacks to Roku's creation at the hands of the undead monk and Master Dark. Now, there is one glaring issue that I have with this flashback sequence that other Valiant fans are going to immediately pick up on. The magic spike that was driven into Roku originally was driven into the base of her skull, and this book shows it being driven into her throat for some reason. Now, I'm not sure if this is an oversight on the part of Ampadu or Correa, but I feel like someone, somewhere at Valiant, should have caught this. The flashback also depicts Ninjak being the one driving the spike into her throat, I guess to indicate to readers that she feels like her whole situation is the fault of Ninjak and no one else. After finally snapping out of whatever feelings she was experiencing at the time, we find out that the Jonin, the guy who trained everyone in the ninja program at MI6, and Ninja I and Ninja F are involved in kidnapping this girl. These two find out this because the Jonin left a feudal Japanese-styled scroll just lying on the ground near Roku. Not the best way to progress the plot, but it's better than what I've seen from Valiant recently with other titles for sure. For those that missed out on Matt Kent's and Christos Gage's run of Ninjak and the Killers, Ninja I has psychic abilities, and Ninja F can astral project her tattoos to confuse and intimidate her enemies. And then the issue concludes with Ninjak and Roku agreeing to take the fight to the Jonin and the other ninja program agents, with Roku saying, "You're going to take me to the Jonin. I'm going to kill him and his alphabet ninjas for taking Mary Beth." Then Ninjak ends the issue by saying he's more afraid of Roku than the Jonin, and I wouldn't blame him for sure. Overall, this issue does a great job of setting the tone for the rest of the series and establishing an uneasy alliance between Ninjak and Roku. The potential this series has to get the bad taste of Ninjak out of the mouths of Valiant fans is there, and I'm excited to see where this series goes over its 4-issue run. I also enjoyed seeing a lengthy fight scene featured in a comic that spans more than just 1 or 2 pages. An action comic like this one should feature these types of scenes just like any action movie should. You expect to see action front and center. And I'll have to hand it to AJ Ampadu. You've done a great job here, and thanks for giving Ninjak fans something to look forward to, finally. Next, let's take a look at the visuals of Ninjak vs. Roku, issue number 1. Alright, now we all know as comic book fans that visuals are what sells a book. It doesn't matter whether you have the greatest story in human history. If the visuals don't complement the story adequately, a book can crash and burn upon release. We saw this with the Javier Pulido Ninjak travesty and the Mike Norton Saturday morning cartoon nonsense that was Super Killers. You remember those 2 projects, right? However, I'm glad to say that Emiliano Correa has done an excellent job of capturing the look and feel of Ninjak in this issue. I'm pleasantly surprised to open this book and see a Ninjak that looked and felt like the character should. And we'll start with the pencils. Correa has an interesting style that mixes anime-inspired visuals with a gritty aesthetic that fits perfectly within this title. Characters are drawn consistently and appear weighty and energetic in each scene and panel. The redesign of Ninjak's outfit is also a welcome change that I thought I would not like, but it exhibits an air of sophistication on the part of Ninjak with the way it's styled. As I mentioned above, a good majority of this issue is the fight between Ninjak and Roku, and Correa does an excellent job of translating Ampadu's script into visuals. The punches and kicks are thrown in flashy fashion, and the hits don't fall flat. The visuals reinforce the impact of each hit. Correa also uses the body language of Ninjak throughout the issue to give visual clues to the readers about his emotions, intents, and actions. The pencils here are really on another level when compared to other Valiant titles that are being released right now. Even compared to my favorite series at the moment, Bloodshot Unleashed Reloaded. Additionally, Correa knows how to frame the action here as well. He uses a variety of shots in this issue, including close-ups, medium shots, and wide shots, and even throws in a few cowboy shots along the way to give this issue some cinematic flair. I mean, this is really great stuff on his part. Correa also handles the coloring on this issue, and I'm impressed with his work here too. The most notable aspect of his color work is the grainy overlay he used throughout this issue. It's almost as if he used the film grain filter within the camera raw settings in Photoshop to add this effect, and it does wonders for creating the right mood and feel for the visuals. Of course, with this issue being about a fight between Ninjak and Roku, a multitude of purples and reds are going to be used, but it doesn't make for a stale read. The visuals pop off every page and within every panel to construct some of the best visuals so far on the road to resurgence. I didn't think I was going to say this, but the art in this issue is the best I've seen from this event, period. I hope that Valiant lets Correa tackle some other books for them because his skill with creating striking visuals is second to none and awesome. Oh yeah, and characters' hands don't seem to be a problem for him either. Finally. Lastly, the trade dress of this issue is awesome with a cardstock cover and thick, glossy interior pages. Overall, this is a pleasant surprise for sure, and Ninjak vs. Roku just set the standard for visuals for all other Valiant books to live up to from this point on. However, I do have one complaint. In the back of the book, there's an advertisement for issue number 2 of Ninjak vs. Roku. And they've changed artists yet again. I don't know what to expect here, but I'll certainly let you guys know what I think next month. I just don't get why they have to round robin creators on these books unless they're rushing around to get them to production. Either way, I'm impressed with this issue for sure. Okay, let's summarize my thoughts on Ninjak vs. Roku, issue number 1 by A.J. Ampadu and Emiliano Carrera. The pros of this book are numerous. We have another writer who understands the characters he's writing for. The pacing and story are interesting, the art is awesome, the color work and filters used are excellent, the story is connected to the past and future of Valiant, we get an extended fight scene, and the trade dress is great yet again. The cons of this issue are it seemed to be over too quickly, and they are swapping out Correa on issue number 2. Ultimately, Ninjak vs. Roku issue number 1 was a surprise, and a surprise in a good way. I'll admit, I didn't have high expectations for this series after the previous efforts were essentially hot garbage, but Ampadu and Correa have done it. Thank you guys for doing Ninjak justice. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more from both of you. So that wraps up my review of Ninjak vs. Roku issue number 1. Of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know what you think about the debut issue of Ninjak's new series. Check your pull lists, and I'll see you next week with the release of Exo Manowar Invictus issue number 3.